Hi, I'm Simon. Welcome to The Ordinary Filmmaker. If you're new here, go ahead and click subscribe to get notification of new videos like this one, so you're not going to miss any news. And all the links to everything I talk about in this video are included in the description down below. Wow, it's been an incredible week, to say the least. A lot has happened, a lot of really great things, and a lot of, well, let's say opportunities. The week started off pretty good. It was a bit of a slow news week. And then on, what was it, Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday, I couldn't sleep at all night. So in the morning, I didn't wake up. So in the morning, I just thought, this is strange. I feel weird. This is not a stomach ache. This is not gas. This is just bizarre. Go away, mosquito. So I went up going to the emergency department, and I got there and it was really strange because it was all cordoned off and all that sort of stuff. So I went in there and within a short order, they said, "You've got appendicitis." So I got booked in for emergency surgery and had that taken care of. I think it was late Wednesday night. It's a bit of a blur right now. But here we are. It's Saturday. I can't believe it. I am recovering. This chair is so very, very comfortable. When I sit in this chair, I do not feel that I'm not relaxing. This is very much one of... Inside I have a Lazy Boy that's very similar to this, and when I'm relaxing, I'm in that. So doing this is not overexerting myself. I enjoy it. I'm outside. I can hear the birds, and that's really good. So the opportunity of this is they caught it really, really early on, so I don't have to worry about having a major problem later on. So that is at least good. But the other bit of good news I got is, guess what I'm shooting with? I'm actually shooting with, I'll bring this over here. I know some of you already know this, but yep, that's the camera I'm shooting with right now. Isn't that awesome? So this video is being shot in 4K, 30 frames per second, all eye. That's what I'm shooting right now. It does shoot on well, I'll get into that later. I've got some questions. I don't want to give away too much, but that's what I'm shooting on. I have the CF Express card in there right now. It's the ProGrade 325 gigabyte card. And that's in there right now. But yeah, so, and the lens. I had a bit of trouble setting up this morning because I can't put my 50 millimeter on here, my EF 50 millimeter f1.2, because I don't have the adapter yet. So I'm shooting with the 24-105 at f4. So that's why you see the background. It's not blurred much at all. But what I hope to do in a week or two is be able to shoot with the adapter on. But I only have this camera till Sunday, so unfortunately after Sunday you're going to start seeing videos back on my 70D. But don't worry about that. I have some other good news coming, which I'll let you know as the questions are asked. So this is really awesome. Is there anything else I want to mention before I get into the videos? Yeah, I'm coming up to 11,000 subs, and thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with my channel. I appreciate all the comments. In the last couple of days, I'm stunned by all the wishes I've received from you guys about getting well and your thoughts and prayers, and it means an awful lot to me. The fact that I've touched as many people out there as that I have means an awful lot. One other thing I really do want to say at the beginning of this video, though, is, sorry, I've got some mosquitoes buzzing around me. While this isn't a review, it is a review. The whole purpose of this video is to do questions and answers, but what you're getting to see is you're seeing the R5 in one of its normal modes. It's 4K 30. This is one of those modes that isn't supposed to overheat. This is one of those modes you can use the camera in long interviews, which essentially this is that same sort of scenario. The only difference is you get this guy for about, 40 minutes. So there is that. But yeah, that's what you're going to be seeing. Now, I haven't turned on the high detail, which is HQ, because you're pretty well limited to 35 minutes of recording. Whereas this, you just have the record limit, so I have to restart every 30 minutes, which I usually do at least once during this shoot. Anything else that I've got set up in the camera? I haven't done C-Log. This is just, like I said, it's just basic. I've just gone and said 4K UHD, 29.97 or 98 frames per second, and all eye. I haven't really fiddled around with anything else. I really haven't had the time to get to know it, because part of what I'm doing after these videos, I just get to recover. And sorry if you see me smacking myself every now and then, it's not some sort of mental condition. I do have some mosquitoes out this morning, which I didn't have last week. All right, so let's get into things here. Let me move this down here. I just want to mention one more thing. This is the last week I'm going to talk about this. I started offering this lens almost 2 months ago as a contest, and it's free. Well, you have a chance to win it with no strings attached. It's the Canon EF 50mm f1.8. I'm not going to mention it ever again. On the 31st is when the contest ends. All you have to do to have a chance to win this is simply subscribe to my channel. That's it. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, and if you just look at the details in the description down below, then I've got everything covered there in terms of shipping and all that sort of stuff. So and that contest has really helped my channel grow. When I started doing the contest, it was around 5,000 subscribers, and I very quickly got up to 10, so it helped get me noticed, but I realized the contest lasted too long. All right, so let's get into the questions. I have a lot of questions this week. The first question comes from Nick. Nick asks, when do you expect to take delivery of the new R5? That's a great question. Well, obviously I have an R5 right now, which is really great news. You weren't expecting that, I'm sure. But I checked with the camera store. They're going to be available here in Toronto on July the 29th. And he's told me that I'm on the waiting list. I should be one of the first few to get it. So I'm waiting for him to give me a call. That's my birthday, actually. That day is my birthday, so the real birthday. So that'll be a really good gift. I've already played around with the R5, so I already know how to use it. And I'll actually do a proper unboxing then because, well, why not, right? Everyone does an unboxing. So great question, Nick. Lincoln asks, can you do a performance editing test on your Mac Pro to see how it can handle 8K footage? Well, I've already done this. So what I did yesterday is I filmed another video and I spent, believe it or not, I spent 30 minutes shooting 8K clips. And there was no overheating. But here's the key. I shot 8K clips for 30 minutes. So what I'm doing is I'm going around, and I wanted to show you guys a couple of things. I wanted to show you what 8K clips look like, downsampled into 4K. And I went around shooting different plants, different shrubs in my back and front yard. So I'm shooting for maybe no more than about 10 to 20 seconds each time. And it didn't overheat whatsoever. So that's really good news. Now, when I took it into my computer, if I let Final Cut Pro render the images, it would play buttery smooth, no problem. And you can see in this little clip here, this is going to be actually, I do have a video coming out probably later today once I finish editing it. And what you can see here is how smoothly it's playing. And then once it gets to the parts that haven't been rendered, it gets rather choppy. But I have a $4,000 iMac Pro. I don't know what this would be like on other laptops. Probably the latest iMac Pro, the MacBook Pro would be able to handle it. But you can see here I haven't done any, or you could see that in that video, it's pretty good when it's rendered, and I didn't do any proxies. So you are going to be able to edit it. Here's the thing. Are you producing 8K clips, or are you producing an 8K project? I think that's the real big difference here. Because if you're going to do a project, yes, it's going to take a lot of processing. And it did take longer to edit. I waited for it to render. It took me more time. Everything took more time with those 8K clips. And I was also shooting in 4K HQ or 4K Fine. And I'm going to reshoot that because when I shot it yesterday, it didn't look as good. I had the wrong camera angle. It's like the camera was looking up to me. It didn't look very good. And I wasn't going to put out a video that didn't look good. And I'm recovering. So I said, you know what? It can be delayed until tomorrow. So yeah, really good question. So yes, it does take a lot of editing, or it does take a lot of processing power. It takes a little bit of smarts in how you do it. But keep in mind, what is your use case? Are you using the R5 as a support camera, or is it going to be your main camera? And that's where you really need to think about it. 8K clips, yesterday it didn't overheat once, and I shot 13 minutes with 4K HQ, and it was 84 degrees outside, which is about 27, 28 Celsius. And for the half an hour I was going around shooting, no overheating warnings at all. So that was really good for my use cases. It's perfectly good. I don't know about yours. Supplifomo asks, what R5 video modes work with an SD card? Which only work with a CF Express card, and which don't work with any existing cards? Well, I can't possibly answer all your questions because I need an unlimited amount of cards, and this is just not that channel. So here's what I'll tell you. Yesterday, my first video I shot in 1080 at 24 frames per second, and It was terrific, no problem. I put in a UHS-1 SD card. Now, it was the Extreme Pro, that's the one where you see 170 megabytes per second. That's actually your max read speed. The max write speed on that card, when I tested it out with F3, was, I think it was right around 80 megabytes a second, so it's pretty good. This video here, I started shooting it with the SD card, the same SD card, and no problem. And I'm shooting again with 4K 30. But I stopped shooting with that card and I put back in the Cobalt card. Why? It's early in the morning. I didn't feel like doing the math. I wasn't sure if 128 gigs was going to be enough. So I thought I'm just going to put in the bigger card, 325 gigabyte card. So I don't have to worry about going over, because I'll do some retakes and I might finish shooting the rest of the other video at the end of this. Plus, the transfer speeds coming off the CF Express card using Thunderbolt is lightning fast. And so when I want to move this off the card and onto the computer, an hour of 4K 30 video, I want that high speed. So the good news is your UHS-1 cards will work in your basic modes, which is really, really good news. But as you save up a bit more money, you're probably going to want to get at least just one really fast UHS-2 card or CF Express card. The price difference between them is almost negligible on current pricing right now. So I would save up for one of those. But yeah, I'm using the CF Express 325 gigabyte Cobalt card. As far as what cards don't work, I don't know. I basically use SanDisk. So that Extreme Pro is a SanDisk card and ProGrade. But I don't think you're going to have a lot of problems. I think even the slower cards that are meant at 80 megabyte per second max read speed should be fine, because they're all V30 cards. As long as you have a V30 card, I don't think you're going to have a problem. V10 card, you know, I'm not so sure about those. Lady Lincoln asks, can you suggest memory cards for the EOS R5? Possibly link the products that we could purchase. Yeah, so certainly. I've really fallen in love with the ProGrade cards. Not because SanDisk is terrible, and I've had really good luck with SanDisk. I love their warranty. Even ProGrade doesn't touch SanDisk's warranty, and SanDisk will give you a lifetime warranty, and they stand up to it. Just make sure you have that receipt. So I've been using the SanDisk Extreme Pro in this camera, and it does really, really well. I like that. But the one thing I like about CF Express is how fast it is to get the stuff off your card. If you have a newer Mac, you've got that Thunderbolt port on it. And the ProGrade CF Express Thunderbolt version, it's pretty cheap. It's about $100. And when you look at anything that's Thunderbolt, they're usually very, very expensive. So getting that reader, the CF Express 325 Cobalt, I really love it. It's got a minimum write speed of 1,400 megabytes per second, not bits, megabytes per second. So I'm really in love with that. Their UHS-2 cards are good too, but I probably wouldn't touch anything under 256 gigs. For most of your shooting, like if you're doing 1080, no, 128 is more than enough. But if you start playing around with 4K, and you will, you definitely will, you're going to go, I should have gotten a bigger card. So they're very expensive right now. You might want to wait for them to come down a little bit in price. The price for basically all flash memory right now is just through the roof. I was looking at buying another SSD for my editing computer. Yeah, I'm not. I'm deleting files. They're just silly prices right now. Oh, and as far as links, the links to everything I shoot with, everything is down in the description down below. I've got links to BMO, B&H, and Amazon. Miguel asks, now that Canon has revealed the R5 and R6, what does this mean for the EF-M line? I wouldn't be worried. I was worried earlier this year until Canon started releasing more lenses for the EF-M mount. Let's take a look at things. First of all, the EF-M mount is for this budget. The R6 and R5 are for this budget. So they're priced very differently. You just don't go, well, do I want to get an M system camera or do I get an R system camera? The price is very, very different. I wouldn't be too worried about Canon getting rid of the EF-M system anytime soon. They're still producing lenses. They're still producing bodies for it. The only thing you really need to be aware of if you're buying the EF-M system is if you buy the native glass, it's a dead end. You cannot take it over to the R system. But if you do buy into the EF-M system and you get the adapter, you can bring over EF glass, and then that EF glass can be migrated over to the R system. So what you have to ask yourself is, if you're going to buy an EFM or buy into that system, or if you're in the system, what's your roadmap? Do you eventually plan on going to full frame? They are bigger cameras, they are bigger bodies, you've got heavier lenses. Is that something you want to get into? Then if so, you might want to start thinking of maybe buying EF lenses and adapting it to it. So that way when you move out, you're only losing the body. So there is that. But yeah, I've been using this R5 for a couple of days now, and it is a very different camera. I'm having to relearn things. How close the camera is to me is a lot closer. And one of the reasons I'm having trouble too is I'm using a completely different lens, so the F value, everything is changing. So I really hope I've set things up for success here at the beginning of today's shoot. Films Are in My Blood asks, your favorite films and filmmakers. Have you met any? That's a really good question. First of all, have I met anybody? I haven't met any directors. I have met some actors, and I got to tell you, being on the set is quite boring if you're spectating. To shoot a 1-minute scene can take half an hour. They'll say the same lines over and over from different camera angles, from different zoom points. It's not at all as exciting as you might think it is. But my favorite film, I'd say this is my favorite film of all time. It's called Meet Joe Black. I love this movie. It starts out as a comedy and then it gets very serious. And it's one of these movies that's about the cycle of life. But I like the way it takes it on. I still like movies that have a positive end where the outlook is bright. And even though there's some pretty heavy topics going on in this movie, and it is a very sad ending, but it's also a very happy ending as well, because you see, I don't want to give too much away. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It is a long movie. It's got Anthony Hopkins in it. It's got Brad Pitt in it. It's got a great cast. Jeffrey Tambor's in it. One of my favorite all-time movies because it just hits on so many levels. Really terrific movie. But outside of that, my favorite genre is really science fiction. I love the Star Trek type of movie where, yes, things can be tough, things can be challenging, but at the end, there's this belief that we will be better off. And I'm tired of a lot of negativity in movies where things are bad, because I see enough of that in the news and in daily life. And when I escape, I want to sit down to see something better. I want to laugh. I want to imagine. And one thing that science fiction does, it takes me into a different place. And you're still dealing with today's modern issues, because that's what science fiction is. It's taking the modern concerns of today and it's wrapping that up in a different story that on the surface you don't realize is there until you dig down and you understand what they're talking to. And that's what I love about science fiction. It's not about the special effects. It's about taking a story and wrapping it up and using a different set of tools to be able to convey the message. And that's what I like about that genre. But I'd say my favorite director of all time has to be Steven Spielberg. I just rewatched Close Encounters of the Third Kind a couple of months ago, the special edition. And it feels like it was shot today. There are a few scenes where you go, okay, this is definitely from the 80s, because in the 80s, there's just certain things you had to do in a movie. But you know, all of his movies I just thought were really, really wonderful. He definitely has a gift. He's somebody I'd certainly like to sit down with and talk to and just hear what he has to say, learn from his wisdom. Yeah, I'd say he's my... It used to be George Lucas when I was younger, but I quickly... and that was probably because of the groundbreaking, what Star Wars did. But as far as Steven Spielberg goes, man, he's my all-time best for sure. Great question. Frosty asks, would you put the R5 in a fridge to cool it down? No, and I'm not kidding. Don't do this. This is the worst thing. I have seen some videos online, and I'm not going to mention names, but I believe this was done more of a joke. Do not put your camera in a fridge to cool it down. This is bad. You're taking a camera from current temperatures, current humidities, and you're putting it into a very, very different environment. You're cooling it down quickly, and what's happening is all that moisture is essentially in the camera is essentially condensing, and it's touching the surface, which can lead to shorts. I do shooting in the winter, and I'm probably going to do these Q&A videos outside. I definitely will. I will. I'm hardy. I'm Canadian. I lived in this country long enough to know how to deal with winters, so I will shoot in the winters. But I don't just take a camera from inside and bring it outside. The first thing I do is, depending on how cold it is outside, I'll take the camera and I'll bring it to the garage, which is kind of halfway between the outside temperature and the inside temperature. And I let it sit there for about 10 minutes. The other thing you can do is, if you're going out in the car, put it in the car, turn the car on, heat it up, and the car will slowly, as the heat goes off, when you get to your destination, will cool down. Don't rush to take it outside, and that'll protect your camera. And then, of course, when you bring it back into the house, do the same thing. Take it from the really cold into the garage, let it warm up to that temperature, then maybe bring it into the basement within the house. In a lot of North America, we have a level below ground, which we call a basement. And it's usually at least 10 degrees to 20 degrees Fahrenheit cooler, especially in the wintertime. And then bring it upstairs, and you're going to protect your gear. Do not ever put it in the fridge. No. It does look cool for a video though, but I just don't want to send the message that in any way this is something you want to try. All right, we've got a really big lesson learned going on here. The first half of this video was shot in 4K HQ. I thought I was shooting in 4K 30. I didn't check to see if HQ was still enabled. So after 30 minutes, it overheat, shut off, and stopped recording. I took a 30-minute break, and then I shot it again in 4K 30. Unfortunately, I had to throw out all that footage. Now, previously, when I shot this Q&A session, I used the 70D with a 51.2, and I shot in that same area over there. And I could set the ISO, I could set the exposure, the f-stop, everything, and I could go for a full hour, and everything would be fine. Well, this camera's a lot more sensitive. Well, I guess it's the camera and the lens combination. It's a lot more sensitive. After about half an hour, it really started to blow things out quite a bit. I was turning it into a ghost. And if you look at the first half of this video, my exposure isn't all the best. Now, when I set it, it looked good. I actually shot it, took it into the computer downstairs, and I looked at it and everything looked fine. So I did set things properly. But what I'm finding out is, if you're outside and the lighting changing, or the lighting conditions are changing, the full frame camera, it's more sensitive, and it creates a few more challenges. So what I'm doing here to continue to the rest of this video is I've got it in ISO automatic mode. So hopefully we don't see a lot of the ISO changing constantly. I really hope that doesn't happen. The lighting that I'm in right now shouldn't really change too much. It's full on sun, so that's not changing the background. And the ambient light shouldn't change too much. So fingers crossed. I don't want to shoot this a fourth time. A fourth time. It's been a rough morning, and it's part of me learning and getting used to a new camera, getting used to a new lens, getting used to the new lighting, and I only have a few days to kind of play around here. I've never worked with a full frame camera before, so that's some of the good learnings that I'm getting this morning. So what am I shooting now? Well, I'm shooting with the same lens, and I'm shooting 4K 30. High quality mode is disabled. So let's get back into the questions. Dan asks, what are the best lenses for basketball photography on an APS-C camera? Well, and this would apply to a full frame too. It's really the same set of three lenses, the 70 to 200, the 100 to 400, and the 400 millimeter. So whether you're courtside or pretty high up, these lenses should work perfectly fine for you. Ibrahim says, I'm a 4-year photographer who started getting into videography. What's the best game plan for stepping into the field confidently and finding work? Preferably ASAP, because I want to cover the cost of my full frame gear. Well, the first thing, this is really good for your business direction, it's good for your confidence, but make sure you have a business vision set up, you have your mission, you have your goals and objectives, you understand the stakeholders, the clients that you're going to be dealing with, what type of content they want. This is all very, very important. This is business 101, this is business architecture, and this will really ensure that your business is going in the right direction. You only have so much time, you only have so many resources, and if you're just kind of going off in different directions, it's very hard to focus and fine-tune your business. These goals and objectives and your vision will really help you achieve that, and over time, take a look at your goals and objectives. They will change. Some goals you'll reach, some objectives you'll reach, and you'll come up with new ones, but your vision really shouldn't change too much over time. The other thing that's very, very important is, with a video, you want to tell a story. It's kind of like that vision. You want to have that in the video too. So what kind of story are you telling? Steven Spielberg is very good at that sort of thing. You really want to have a clear message, or a story that you're telling, something that's engaging, but also leverage a good score or music that you can apply where the lyrics tell the story, where the emotion is pulled out through the audio. The audio is kind of the last thing to really get you to feel what's going on. That's what I love about video. With photos, it's sight-based. With video, it's sight, it touches your ears, and in the right setting, if you have the right speaker system, you can actually feel the audio too. So it's very, very powerful. I think that's really, really important. And the last thing you really need to worry about is getting your message out there, pounding the pavement, using social media. The social media that works, don't overdo it. I think FaceTime, I was going to say FaceTube. FaceTime is very effective. YouTube can be effective, as can Instagram. So you want to get out there and communicate your message. But as far as building your confidence, definitely having a clear vision of what you're about, having already created some content, so that you want to focus on creating some really good content, proving to yourself that you can do it, you can do a great job, and then it's just getting out there and communicating that message. JC Never Stops says, do you think the A7S III's photo capabilities will be useful for professional use, not necessarily for printouts, but for high quality uploads on either Instagram or a client website? Yeah, 12 megapixels. You can produce 8x10s, print out 8x10s, and printing requires more high quality than printing to the screen. So if you can do 8x10s on a 12 megapixel sensor, then I have no doubt that you can produce really good high quality images for client websites or for Instagram, Facebook, or any of those online media sources. But we are making some assumptions here. We do need to find out exactly what the quality is like on the Sony A7S III, what's the color accuracy like, color resiliency, ISO performance, all that sort of stuff. But I really doubt that it's going to be anything but good. I think it'll work for you, but just wait for the announcement. Wait to see what the actual quality is like. But 12 megapixels should be fine for you for that use case scenario. Jay asks, where's your brother, the ordinary photographer? But for real, do you separate yourself from photography as your name and focus more on filmmaking? Well, this is an awesome question. And what's really funny here is I actually do have a brother. He is a photographer, and he lives in Vancouver, and he's actually very good at what he does, but he doesn't do a YouTube channel or anything like that, and I really wish he did. So I really wish he does because he's got a real good talent. He's better in front of the camera than I am. He's far more photogenic. He's far better as a presenter. So I really wish he would do that. But the reason why I call myself the ordinary filmmaker, first of all, ordinary is that I'm just like you. I'm a regular person. I didn't start a business in photography and then move into video. I was just a regular person who got a camera because they were tired of the quality I was getting out of point shoots. I got a decent camera. I wanted to produce really good photos. And then I got a decent camera to produce good video because I wanted to capture life as it happened. And over the years, I've learned how to improve my craft. And here I am with a full frame camera now. I've got a lot more to learn. I got to learn how I got to learn to work with ISO better. I got to learn to work with the f-stops, the different lenses, and it's a whole new learning experience. So the reason I call myself the ordinary filmmaker is because I'd say 80–90% of what I shoot outside of the YouTube channel is related to video. Most of all the time I'm shooting video. I just love how the video captures life as it happens. You're able to use a score to really pull the emotion out of the scene and tell the story. Doesn't mean I don't like photo, but once I got into video, it's hard to go back. It's just so powerful. So that's why. But yeah, funny enough, I do have a brother. He's ordinary and he does photography. So he could set up a channel and call it The Ordinary Photographer if he wanted to. Indy asks, do you think either Canon or Sony offerings will help turn the camera market around, or are the heydays of the camera market a thing of the past? Could it create more ordinary filmmakers and photographers? No, I don't think the heyday is over at all. What I'm seeing with the R5 and the A7S III, I'm seeing a ton of innovation. I'm seeing the power of machine learning in these cameras. I'm seeing the convergence of capabilities working together to produce a better end result instead of, IBIS will help you here or autofocus will help you here. I see them collaborating and working together much better now. To be able to shoot in low light and how IBIS helps there, how the eye autofocus works, it's very, very powerful. So I think for the companies that are willing to step it up and innovate and come out with products that challenge the way we've done things in the past to improve our workflow and improve the accuracy of our end result and the end result itself, I think they're going to do well. I think Canon's going to do very well. I think Sony's going to do very well. But we're in a tough economic time. But even that tough economic time, the R5s, they're selling out. Their pre-orders are going very, very well. And that just is further evidence that if you innovate and produce something really good, people will flock to it. For other companies such as Olympus, they've decided to exit the market, and I don't think they're going to be the other one. I think we're going to see some mergers and acquisitions. We're no longer at, 15, 20 million units a year. We're going to be down to about 6 to 7 million units a year, and that's according to what Canon's projecting. So we're definitely going to have a smaller marketplace, but I don't think innovation is going to stop, especially in video. Look at what we're seeing in video now. Look at what we're seeing in the Canon R5. We're able to shoot 4K 30 for unlimited amount of time. We're able to shoot 8K, 4K HQ. The Sony a7S III is going to be able to shoot 4K up to 120 with no record limit or time limit. It's going to be a very, very powerful video camera. So for Sony, for Canon, I think things are going to go really well. Nikon, it really depends on what their Z8 is going to be like. If it comes out and it's a really powerful, amazing camera that competes well with the R5 and the a7S III, carving out its own little niche, Nikon's going to do well. But if they put out something very similar to the Z5, which is not really offering us anything new, it's essentially the EOS R. It's better in some areas, very equitable in many others. But the EOS R, when it came out, was a little bit behind the times, and that was 2 years ago. So the Z5 to me isn't overly impressive, especially not at the price. The Z8 has to impress. And the GH6, they got to fix the autofocus, because the GH5 with autofocus fixed is an awesome camera. And I don't think Micro Four Thirds is dead, despite what others have said. Look at Sharp. They're trying out 8K on a Micro Four Thirds sensor. So yeah, the market is going to consolidate, but I don't think innovation is going to stop. I certainly don't think we've done with the heyday. I'm really impressed to see how machine learning is going to take us. That's one of the reasons why smartphones have done so well, is that computational power, that machine learning to improve the end result and to reduce the amount of time and how much we have to learn. So I think that is truly powerful. Frosty has another question. When your R5 comes in, can you provide 8K sample of a Chinese tea ceremony? It's an art form like the Japanese, but different culture and great camera work opportunity. As you know, Frosty, my wife is Chinese, so while she may not be familiar with the Chinese tea ceremony, and I know we don't have all the plates and cups, I'm sure she has some friends and colleagues that do, and that is something I'm definitely going to put on the to-do list. And one last question from Frosty. Why did we make the switch from RGB to bare sensor configuration? Sony had the last pro broadcast RGB camera with RGB. Well, this all started in 1974. Bruce Baer came out with the Baer filter, named it after himself, and it uses a simple configuration. It's also RGB, but it's RGGB, so you've got 4 photosites together for a single pixel, and 2 of them are green. And the reason he did that, he said, well, I looked at the eye, and if you look at the number of green cones, I wanted to replicate that. So he was trying to replicate the human eye, faults and all. Fuji has come up with a better idea, RGBW, and that makes a whole lot more sense, because now instead of and the reason for the extra green was to improve low light light sensitivity, because we see more green. Well, why didn't you just make it white, and then that way, if you're shooting blues and reds, you've got more sensitivity to light as well. So if you shoot a picture of, let's say I'm wearing a completely blue shirt, and this one's got blue and white in it, you shoot a picture of that blue shirt, you've only got 1 or 25% of that entire pixel that can actually capture light for that. Whereas if one of those was W, which means it captured all light, you're going to perform a lot better. And there are cameras that do this. There are cameras that take this one step further. And instead of having a really nice filter, what they do is they have 3 different sensors, a red, green, and a blue sensor. And the color precision is just amazing. The quality, the low light performance, it is truly stunning. But this is not in consumer cameras. These are more industrial cameras, and I've heard nothing of us ever seeing this in hybrid cameras. But if they make them the right size, you could do like a Micro Four Thirds, have 3 sensors in a camera. It would be a little bit more boxy, but the color, the precision, the low light sensitivity, you think it's pretty good with an R5 or 1DX Mark III? No, that would just blow it away. It's just light and day the difference. So, but I don't know why you're asking me this question, Frosty. You, more than anybody else, could probably easily ask why they went with this. At the time, they felt it was the best sensor configuration and what would work. And even Baer himself actually came out with colors that he thought would be better. It was cyan, magenta, and yellow, I believe. But for whatever reason, they couldn't make it happen. I think it was most likely to do with resourcing. They either couldn't get the colors or they couldn't get the technology to work with those colors. Stephen asks, when it comes to R5 specifically, would you say it's better to invest in RF or EF lenses? Both. It depends on your use case. So look at me, for example. I'm an ordinary filmmaker. I've been shooting the YouTube channel with the EF 50mm f1.2. So I'm just going to spend $100, get the EF to RF adapter, put it on the R5 when I get it, and then put the 51.2 on it. I'm going to shoot with that. You know, it's $100 to adapt the lens versus what, $2,600? I think $2,600 to get the RF version of that lens, and I just don't see the point of wasting all that money for something that true is a little bit better, but excuse me, I got the hiccups now. Not enough to go out and spend all that extra money. I'd rather buy a new lens like the 15-35, which is on my roadmap. But I did need a general purpose lens. I didn't want to adapt EFS lenses, so I bought the 24-105 f4, and that's what I'm shooting with right now. So it's a combination. If I could find the 100-400mm EF lens and get it at a good price, I would happily buy that, because getting the 100-500mm RF lens, for what I would use it for, I could not justify spending that much money for a lens I might use a couple of times a year. So it's a bit of balance. The one thing I would caution you with, if it's for video, don't get EF lenses that are too old, because the focus motor is very, very loud. So unless you're using something like a Tascam and you're far enough away from it where you won't hear it, some of those old lenses really make a lot of noise. Like the EF 24-105 version 2 is great, but the version 1, you don't want to touch it, not for video. But for photos, you've got over 107 lenses to choose from, and that's power. Chewy asks, I was wondering which CF Express and SD card you would recommend for the R5. I bought the 512GB ProGrade Gold CF Express and the UHS-2 V90 256GB SD card, and I was wondering if these are good enough to handle the beast of the R5. Yeah, you almost got exactly what I got. So what I got for this camera was the ProGrade 325GB Cobalt card, minimum write speed of 1400 megabytes a second. So I got the 325GB card. I wanted to order the 256 V90 UHS-2 cards, but apparently you bought the last one, so I'm just adapting and using my UHS-1 cards right now. 4K 30 will have no problems writing on a UHS-1 card. The V30 cards are perfectly fine for that. But I think that if you're going to get into a bit more 4K 30, 256 gigs is going to give you peace of mind. It'll allow you to shoot an awful lot of stuff. And this morning's video, I shot a good hour of video and on the 325 gig card, and it didn't fill it up, but it came pretty close. Stop the FOMO asks, Tony and Chelsea Northrup just put the R5 video recording test showing a 2-hour cooldown after 35 minutes of 4K 60 recording. Does this change your use case for the R5? I'm quite disappointed at this long cooldown time. So FOMO, if you're shooting in 1080 60 and you want to move to 4K 60, or 4K 60 is a mode you want to shoot a lot of your videos in, then yeah, this is not the camera for you. Stay away from it. But for my use case, it doesn't affect me at all. You see, 4K 60 and 4K 20 to me are slow motion modes. I'm going to be shooting in 24 or 30 frames per second all the time. The only time I want to shoot in those modes is when I want slow motion, and I cannot see myself shooting slow motion for more than, I don't know, 30 seconds, 20 seconds at a time. For scientific purposes, I could see you wanting to shoot for a long time, but for the ordinary filmmaker, just imagine this. If the limit's around 20 minutes, let's shave off 5 minutes, because let's assume it's a hot day. And right now today it's 80 degrees right now in the shade, and this camera's going no problem. But it's 15 minutes brought into a video that's using 30 frames per second would yield an hour of video. Now, if you're producing wedding photos or wedding videos, and a lot of wedding videos will take advantage of 4K 60 and 4K 20 for sure. But for each scene, you're not going to go more than, what, 5-10 seconds at most for a given scene. You're going to use different angles. So you're going to record a little bit, stop, go to a different angle, record a little bit. You're not going to record 20 minutes at a time. And so for my purposes, because I don't do wedding stuff, I don't even get into that level of slow motion, 4K 60 is not a problem for me at all. But to give you an idea of what I went through this morning, I shot 30 minutes at 4K HQ, so that's full sensor readout before it overheated. Took a 20-minute break, and then I recorded another 45 minutes of 4K 30. And I wasn't doing a cool down, I was doing other things, getting things set up, and it took me about 20 minutes to do that. And I got, an extra 45 minutes. So, what was it? A gentleman out of Malaysia, Gao, I think is his name. I forgot his name, I do apologize. But he's a Canon ambassador, and he did a test, and after it overheated, he shot full HD video and didn't have a problem. What I'm seeing now, and this is kind of a big deal, is not only after it overheats can you shoot full HD, but you can shoot 4K 30 without it overheating too. And I'm in, as I said, 80-degree heat here, and that's looking pretty good. So yeah, I don't, for me, and for you, you've got to look at what your use cases is. Is that a problem? But for me, no, it's definitely not a problem. I don't think it's a problem for most ordinary filmmakers. I also shot a bunch of 8K video clips yesterday. I shot for 30 minutes, not 30 continuous minutes. I shot some plants here. I shot some other shrubs for another video I'm doing. And I would shoot 10 to 30 seconds, walk over to the next one, line up, shoot. I did this for half an hour in 85-degree sun, and the camera didn't overheat. And then I shot another video in 4K 30 for 13 minutes, didn't overheat. So from what I'm seeing in the heat in normal Canadian summers where it's 85 degrees, 90 degrees, I'm not having a problem with any of these modes. So I'll keep you updated on what I notice, but overheating I would say is very much overblown, and I'm actually quite impressed with the performance of the camera. Chewy asks, what do you think of the R5 and R6 animal eye autofocus? Have you seen the videos? Yeah, and it's stunning. But as I said earlier, I think the real amazing thing here is not how good the animal eye focus is. It's not how amazing the IBIS is and how if you move the camera, it doesn't jerk or create those awkward moments. It's not about the low light performance. It's about all these capabilities working together. So if you're shooting in low light, the eye autofocus is able to lock on. The stabilization is able to help stabilize the camera so you can expose it a little longer. And so at the end of the day, the results are you get better, more accurate results. You get, it's not about what you're doing, it's about the end result. And the EOS R, I had a problem with it because when you use continuous autofocus, you were pretty well maxing out at 3 frames per second with everything in focus. And the R5 with the faster processor, with IBIS, with the great eye autofocus, all that working together, you're gonna nail a shot much more frequently. And I think that's the real big win here. Our last question comes from Sean Ryan. Knowing that mirrorless cameras overheat, what are some useful strategies to maximize shooting time? This is really an awesome question considering everything I've gone through today. I've been shooting for probably about 2.5, 3 hours. Yes, I've taken breaks in between. I had some issues, and part of it was me just learning how to use a full frame camera and the ever-evolving lighting situation. But I've shot today in nothing but 4K. It did overheat once, but this is as stated by Canon, that if you shoot in 4K HQ, which is 8K full sensor readout, you're limited to around 30, 35 minutes of record time, and that's exactly what I got. I got 30 minutes of record time. I took a 20-minute break, not to cool down the camera, but because I had to set things up, and I started re-recording at 4K 30, went 45 minutes, no problem. And here I am, I've been recording this in 4K 30 again, and not having a problem either. And it's hotter now. It was 60 degrees when I first started out. So I'm not really too worried about overheating. It seems to be that in 4K 30 and 1080p 30, overheating isn't a concern. And if I'm going to be doing slow motion, whether it be 4K 60 or 120, I'm not going to be shooting for an awful long period of time. We're shooting clips most of the time. And for most of my videos outside of YouTube, I'm shooting clips. I'm shooting short scenes, which rarely go over a minute. And like I said, I was shooting 8K yesterday for half an hour. I got over 16, 30 clips, or I don't know what it was. It was a good amount of clips. I didn't have a problem. The only problem I'm noticing is that this stuff is using up a ton of space, and that 1 terabyte SSD in my iMac is definitely coming into its own right now, because this Q&A video is taking up a good portion of that. But that's kind of it for today. I do want to kind of reflect on some of the issues that I had today, and I think part of it is just this guy here, ordinary filmmaker. This is my first time with a full frame camera, and I didn't realize The ISO was so much more sensitive on this camera than it was on the 90D. Like I said, the 90D, I could set it up, get the ISO, put it on myself, record it, take it in downstairs, adjust it, come back and adjust the settings, and I could shoot for an entire hour. I can't do that here, and I don't know if it's how much of it is the lens versus the full frame camera. So when I get my 50mm on here, that's how I'm going to shoot outdoors. That's the lens I'm used to shooting with. I just prefer it. But yeah, I've got to learn. And I know this is not the best quality video that I've produced. There are some mistakes in here. The first half of the video, I'm a little bit overexposed, but you get to see the level of detail in there. And I think the end result is the message that I'm trying to communicate to you. I'm not necessarily trying to produce the best video each time, but I'm trying to communicate the message. You can look at the first half of the video and you can get to see a good, 20 minutes in 4K HQ, and then you can compare it to the rest of the video. I know it's a different setting, but you can see the level of detail, and I ask you this question: which one is more detailed? Which one would you prefer to shoot in? And one of them, the camera overheats, and the other one, it doesn't. And that's really, really powerful. But I'm going to try and take it easy now. I'm going to go ahead and edit this video, and then I got to come out probably around 2 o'clock when the sun's in a better position in the backyard, where I can finish filming the video about 4K HQ. So I'm shooting that entire video in 4K HQ, and I wonder if I should just shoot it in 8K. Well, see, if I shoot it in 8K, I'm going to downsample to 4K anyway, so there's really no point. Yeah, I'm going to shoot it in 4K HQ, and I'm going to show you the 8K clips that I shot. Again, it'll be in 4K, but the whole purpose of the 8K videos is not to produce an 8K video. It's to show you the power of being able to crop into that 8K space and still have a very, very sharp image, and I think that's the whole purpose of that. So that video will probably actually come out first, which is interesting. We'll have to wait and see. Depends on how easy this editing job is. But as you can tell by my voice, I've been talking way too much today. Thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. I really appreciate you guys. All the comments you've given me, the get well comments, and the praise I've gotten over the last couple of days. It definitely means a lot to me. I am expecting to pick up the R5 probably later this week once it's available. I'm waiting for a Downtown Camera to give me a call and say it's available, at which point it can be picked up or I can have it shipped. So I'm really excited to have that, and then I can really play around with it. And of course, once I'm fully better, I'll do a lot more shooting. Right now, the camera's too heavy for me to hold without it causing some, believe it or not, if I hold that camera and I'm just breathing, it creates pain, so I'm only using it in tripod mode. All right, one more thing to mention, and this is really, really annoying. Because this is a mirrorless camera, when it stops recording at 30 minutes, it's absolutely silent, and I'll keep talking. So this last section, this last half an hour, it almost got me right to the end and it stopped recording. When I got up to check, I'm like, oh no, how much did I lose? And I really didn't lose much at all. I think I lost like 15 seconds. I really wish Canon would put a little ping or a little note so that when it hits the recording limit, it lets you know, because it's really irritating to keep talking. And I could turn the flip screen around, but with the flip screen around, I'm not looking into the lens, I'm looking at the flip screen. There's other workarounds I could do. I could set a timer on my watch and set it to 29 minutes, and when it starts pinging, then I know it's time to get up and stop the camera and start recording again. So that's really annoying. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for commenting. I really do appreciate all the kind things you've said to me over the past couple of days, all the encouragement, all the get wells, best wishes. This is a wonderful time in terms of learning new cameras. I am taking it easy. I wish I could produce a lot more content right now, but I got to focus on getting better. And I want to learn so much about this camera. I want to learn how to work with a full frame camera, because I've never shot with one before. And as I've seen here today, getting the lighting is very important. Now in the last half an hour, you can see the lighting is bang on. It's looking pretty good. The lighting is consistent from this view. Setting the ISO to 100 has worked out. I thought it might be a problem. And I'll play around next week. I'll probably have the R5 then, my own R5, and I'll try filming from the same location, and I'll see if I can't get that to work. This is a trial and error basis, and that, you know, as I said before, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. So thanks for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. We'll see you again soon.